Hi, so today I'm looking at Micron technology, which I've been watching for a few years now. And the reason I've been wanting to dive a little deeper is because two of my favorite investors have big stakes in this company, and I just wanted to find out why. And if you're new to my channel, well, welcome. My videos are about investments that anyone in the world can make. Now look, there is so much noise out there that many people invest in something because of maybe they read something online or they heard people talking about it at work. Now, I'm 32 years old and I have about $600,000 invested in the stock market right now, and I'm aiming to keep that growing at around about 20% per year. Now, I'm not perfect at this. Not every investment that I make is going to be a home run, but I'm always learning, and the best way I think to learn is to teach. So here I am showing you how to analyze a company. All right, now let's get into Micron technology. Now, Micron designs, manufactures, and sells memory and storage products worldwide. They are one of the leading producers of DRAM and NAND memory chips. There are only three major players in the DRAM space, of which Micron has about a 28% market share. Now, the other companies are Samsung and SK Hynix. Now, the cool thing about having only a couple of competitors means that each company has been able to enjoy pretty high margins and a good return on equity, which I'll get to a little later in the finances. But also recently, Micron has been gaining market share on both of these rivals. Now, another factor in the memory chip market is the high barrier to entry required to be a player, as it's very capital intensive. See, it would most likely be very inefficient for any of the big tech giants like Apple or Google to build out the facilities to make in-house memory chips. See, it's possible, but this would only create a lot more work for these companies without really necessarily improving their margins. But China imports a lot of these memory chips, and actually it is one of Chinese biggest imports. Therefore, the Chinese government might want to incentivize a Chinese manufacturer to compete in this memory card chip space. Look, it appears unlikely that another challenger will come into the market anytime soon. But if they do, I think it'll come from China. I think it is just something to be aware of about the industry, as it might change the investment thesis if we were to invest in this company long term. Memory chips are also cyclical, and the memory chip market works a little like this. See, Micron produces a memory chip, say in 2018. That is the best memory chip on the market. That first year of launching, they can charge really high prices as they have the best product. But by 2019 or 2020, the world is looking toward the next release of the 2021 chip that is going to be better again. So by 2020, Micron dropped the prices of that 2018 chip to squeeze the last bit of juice out of that product before gearing up for their big new cycle launch in 2021. And then the cycle starts again. And therefore, we get cyclical earnings. But although it is cyclical, moving up and down, the ups are getting higher and the downs are not as low as they were before. See, the cycle is trending upwards overall in these 3-4 year cycles. The reason it is trending upwards is because memory chips are vital to the future of artificial intelligence, 5G, and the gaming industry. And we will see exponential growth in these areas, and memory and storage is just going to be a big part of that. Now, could you hit that like button for me, because this video took obviously a lot of work and I get no other feedback except for people hitting the like button. So look, thanks a lot. It really does help me. One of my favorite investors is Monish Pabrai. He is the manager of the Dalal Street Fund in the US and the more international Pabrai investment fund as well. He is a deep value investor, and I have a lot of respect for him and how he analyzes and makes investments. He has been doing this for more than 20 years now with an incredible track record returning over 900% for his investors. So when I see a company that he has invested in, I take notice. And that's exactly why we're looking at Micron technology today. Okay, so as you can see, he currently actually only has two investments in the US, Micron and Seritage Growth Properties, with Micron being the largest part. Now, I know how thorough Monish Pabrai is when making an investment, so for him to make such a big play into Micron, well, it's a big tick of approval. I think there is nothing wrong with just copying the great investors. They have far more experience than most of us and made far more money than most of us ever will. I actually think a very good strategy would be just to take these 13F filings from the best investors in the world and just copy exactly what they do. You would save huge amounts of time researching the companies yourself, and you would likely get close to similar returns to these best investors in the world as well. Actually, probably is the most underrated strategy out there, and something I'm actually going to do a lot more of. So you might be wondering why I don't do this exclusively. Well, I do copy them a lot, but I want to improve myself as well. So one day I can be an investor like these legends. And I enjoy learning about investments that I'm making too. Another superstar investor that I like to follow is Li Lu. Now, Li Lu is actually who Charlie Munger of Berkshire Hathaway, he entrusts Li Lu with large amounts of his family's net worth. Now, Lilu runs what's called the Himalaya Capital Fund, and here is his latest 13F. Now, as you can see, Micron makes up about half of the portfolio, with Bank of America, Facebook, and Google the other parts of the portfolio. Now, Lilu was also invested in Alibaba, but has sold out of that position sometime in Q2. So this gives me a lot of confidence about my own portfolio and what I'm doing, because I literally own all of these companies except for Micron. So both Monish Prabhai and Lilu, two of my favorite investors, are heavily invested in Micron. I think I should take notice. Share buybacks is something I really like to see. Since shares of a company are a part ownership in the company, well, our ownership percentage gets bigger and bigger because the company is taking shares off the market. So this is great news for long-term investing and something that is, I think, a big positive. In 2018, Micron started buying back shares. Now, although this has been a little inconsistent, it is a good sign that the company wants to return value to their shareholders. So this is just another positive for Micron. From my research, I see three headwinds that could affect the investment in Micron. The first is China is accelerating its memory chip research and facilities. See, China being a big customer for Micron, this would affect their business significantly and something I really want to monitor. Number two, well, the US-China trade tariffs could hurt the company, something we're also going to have to monitor. And number three is consumer spending is going to be down in the short term due to current conditions, of course. The world economy is far from strong right now, and it might actually take a little bit of time for the world to get back on its feet. Okay, with any business, to check the financial health of the company, we want to look at these three areas. Can they handle their debt? Are they growing? And are they a well-managed company? Now, look, don't worry about the terminology I use here. Just sit back and try to follow along. Look, it's part art and part science anyway. Okay, can they handle their debt? Look, it is really important to look at the company's debt because the businesses, well, really, they can't go bankrupt if they don't have any debt. Debt is the reason companies get into trouble. So, to see if the business can handle its debt, I go through what's called the debt to equity ratio and the current ratios of the business. Now, Micron's debt to equity ratio is a 0.17, and it's well below the 0.7 that I like to see. Plus, the current ratio is also very strong at a 2.7, which means this year they can easily handle their short-term liabilities. Look, this is an easy tick here. Let's move on to see if they're growing. So in the finances, to check for growth, I look at the book value per share, the earnings per share, the operating cash, and their gross margins. Now sure, 2020 is going to be a bit of an exceptional year, so I want to think about that when I'm looking at these charts. So the first one I'm going to look at is the book value per share. And look, it's solid book value per share growth here from Micron, so that's good. Next, we have the earnings per share. Now, we have to remember that Micron is a cyclical business. So the ups and downs are expected, but the ups are getting higher and the downs are becoming not quite as low. Now, I know it's not perfect, but as you can see, the trend is going in the right direction. Now, this is the cash from operating activities and it follows a similar pattern to the EPS, so that's okay. Now we're going to look at the gross margins. And this is something that I've started focusing more on lately. Now, a company that can grow their gross margins is doing a lot of things right. Now, Micron has been improving its gross margins as well, in a similar trend to the earnings per share. The cyclical nature does affect the gross margins as well, but as you can see, it's growing. Okay, so I'm happy enough to give them a tick here, but cyclicality is the issue. If I had a choice, I'd prefer not to see the cycles, but as long as we understand what is happening, it's really no reason to scrap them. Now we're going to see if the company is well managed. So we can't just go and have meetings with the management team and have a coffee with them, but there are some telltale signs in the financials that tell us if the management team are making good decisions. So I'm going to check the return on equity, the free cash flow, and their cash on hand. Okay, now I want to see the return on equity above a 15, as it shows management are improving the value for shareholders. For Micron, when at the top of the cycle, the return on equity is huge, but then it falls back a lot. Again, the cyclical nature of the business at work here. This is the cash at the bank and it's been improving. That's really all we need to see. Now this is the free cash flow graph and more signs of cyclical behavior. I think they only get a half mark in this section. Okay, so overall, pretty solid financials here from Micron. The overall trend after smoothing out those cycles is positive, and with a positive industry outlook, I think the trend can continue. I also like that they have very little debt. So I guess now it's just going to come down to their valuation. Okay, to get a copy of the calculator that will help you find intrinsic value, I have a link and it's in the description and it's free if you want it. Now, when I say intrinsic value, what I'm talking about is based on the growth rates of the company and how much money the company is actually making. Well, intrinsic value is what should be the correct share price today. Look, it's not perfect because we're making a lot of assumptions about the future and growth rates, but it helps us get some sort of ballpark figure. Now, the stock market often overvalues or undervalues companies, so this is just one good way to work out this value. Okay, so I use these metrics to find intrinsic value. Now, I use the growth rates, which I found from both Yahoo Finance and the website from Zacks. This is just a bit of an average between the two websites to get these growth rates. Now, I've used a discount rate of 8.5%. Now, it's just showing in the calculator here, that's just rounded up to 9%, that's fine. Multiple is 15. The op cash minus maintenance capex, now that's actually just a free cash flow number I've grabbed, and the shares outstanding is there as well. So this is not a buy price. Even though it says buy price, this is actually what I would call the current intrinsic value is $72 and there's no margin of safety. So a solid buy price here with a good margin of safety of say 50%, I think would be about half of this number, which would be $36. Now, this is just my estimations. Please play around with different growth rates. If you think things are going to be better than what I think and what the analysts think, then try higher growth rates. That's cool. Just don't forget some margin of safety. No one is going to be able to predict exactly what's going to happen in the future, so you have to have some breathing room for errors. Now, the current share price as of mid-November is about $60 for Micron. So I do think Micron is under intrinsic value, just not even close to enough for me to feel good about a margin of safety. I think it needs about a 30-35% pullback, which, well, look, it's probably not going to happen, but that's okay. Now, what I've done is I've gone through the 13F documents and estimated an average buy price of the guru investors. Now, it looks like Monish Pabrai bought in at about that $36, $38 range, and Li Lu somewhere between $40 and $42. So do I want to invest in Micron? Okay, so here are my reasons why I think Micron could be a good investment so far. There's limited competition in the memory chip space. The barrier to entry is high due to that cost. The cyclical businesses, well, they're not the most attractive for these competitors. Therefore, that barrier to entry is a little bit higher. Their earnings per share, their book value, their gross margins, and their return on equity are all overall trending in the right direction. Monish Pabrai and Li Lu have big investments in the company as well. Guru investors I can trust have done far more research and have more experience than me. And the last point is Micron is buying back shares, which I really like. So Micron is another company I'm going to add to my watch list. Hopefully we get to see a $40 price point at some stage. Look, thanks for staying to the end of the video. Let me know what you think of Micron. I'm very interested to hear opinions. Hit that subscribe button for me so you don't miss future videos, and I will see you next time.